Today's episode is going to be a little bit exciting because we are going to travel outside of our field and get some great ideas from the field of kinesiology or exercise science and bring it back into the field of speech sound disorders. Why are we doing this? We're going to do this because the field of speech sound disorders has very little research on what works and what doesn't work. A lot of the research we have, unfortunately, is on programs. So we don't know what in the program is effective and what in the program is less effective. So we have the field of exercise science where they've really had a lot of random controlled trial studies where they looked at specific strategies and what strategy is effective and what strategy is not effective in the form of A/B testing, where they kept everything the same so we can look at what they're doing in exercise science and we can apply these principles to our area of speech sound disorder research, which is very limited in comparison. Our research base is very, very small. So exercise science is comparable in that you have a complex neuromuscular activity that you are studying. And you're seeing what is effective and what is less effective when it comes to improving this complex, highly skilled neuromuscular activity. So we can take these ideas and we can put them into our practice Monday morning, and we can look at, is this something that is a game changer? Is this something that's improving the outcomes on my back porch with the children I work with? So let's have our wandering eyes and let's head over there and let's grab some ideas. I'm going to cover 5 evidence-based strategies. These are 5 maxims from the field of kinesiology, or you might call it exercise science. We're going to go ahead and take these principles and put them into our speech sound disorder practice. So the first principle is that practice makes permanent. Form matters above all else. So oftentimes you might be working on a sound such as the R sound, and half the time the child's producing a W, and half the time the child's producing an R. Now that's highly confusing because the child is unsure, was it the W that I produced correctly? Was it the R I produced correctly? So what you might be doing is actually reinforcing an eared motor pattern. What we want to do instead is we want to have a minimum 80% accuracy rate at all times. And how do you accomplish this? That's through the dynamic nature of cueing. I think Edith Strand explains it well. It's this moment-to-moment level of cueing based on what the child is giving you. So if the child, for instance, their attention's waning, if they're losing motivation, and they start speaking in a more sloppy manner, you're going to have to up the cues on your part, and you're going to have to support them more to make sure that their form maintains accuracy. We're taught in college, for instance, to write SOAP notes and to say, we're going to provide this level of cueing during the session. You don't want to do this. Cueing is not a one-way decision in which you're going to say, this session is going to be provided with visual cues. This session is going to be provided with tactile cues. This session is going to be provided with verbal cues. The truth of the matter is your cues should change throughout the session from a moment-to-moment basis based on what the partner throws at you. The partner threw the ball this way, so you're going to change what you're doing. You're going to put your hands way up in the air this time. You're going to dive low this time. It's very dynamic in nature. You're cueing based on a moment-to-moment basis. Your cueing should probably within a session look like a roller coaster ride, where it's the child has a very high level of motivation. The child is really focused. The child can do it independently. Pull the cues back 100%. This child is independent. They are saying that R correctly. Go. Here, you're seeing the motivation is waning. You gotta go and put the cueing up, 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 up. You know, the roller coaster. Now you're going to put your cueing up to make sure the child stays on track and is producing it accurately at an 80% accuracy rate. Now, could the child be producing it accurately too much of the time? Yes. If the child is 100% accurate, this is too easy. You are providing too much cueing for the child. You need to pull back on that cueing. It's not challenging enough. You want that child at that challenge point. Know that challenge creates change. If the child's just going through it and is automatic already to produce that sound correctly, the R sound, for instance, at the phrase level, okay, we got to move it up. We got to go to sentences. We got to go to paragraphs. We got to go to a different context in which they're using it in the context of movement now instead of seated at a table. We are going to up it because this child is 90, 100%. We're ready for change. Remember, when the child is adapted to it, when it's become automatic, that's when you're going to see plateaus. That's when you're not going to see gains because you're not challenging the child enough. We don't want to go status quo at 90%, status quo at 100%. If it's 90 or 100%, we've got to drop those cues, or we have to make that treatment target more challenging. And we can do that through increasing the linguistic complexity. We can increase the phonetic complexity. Instead of the child saying like grin, which is really easier to say because the g retracts the lips and it retracts the tongue too, we're going to go ahead and say, have the child say a PR blend, something like frank, where the lips are protruded and rounded and they're still able to produce the R. So we're going to change something and make it more difficult because we don't want this child at 90, 100%. That means that we have automaticity. That means that we're going to have plateaus. That means that we're not creating change because challenge creates change. So the first rule from exercise science is the 80% challenge point at all times through dynamic cueing. For instance, sometimes the child might come in and the child didn't sleep the night before. You're providing maximum cueing the whole session. You are like, all right, you're having a rough day. I'm your dance partner. I'm going to carry you through today because I don't want you today producing the R at 50% accuracy and habituating an errored motor program. Let's look at number 2, second maxim from the area of exercise science. And that second maxim is progressive overload. So we know that challenge is going to create system-wide linguistic change. Now, how can we challenge the child? A lot of our research in speech sound disorders, and this is totally consistent with the field of exercise science, says we want a high number of reps. So if you're working at the single word level, for instance, we want 150 reps in that session to make gains. The same thing in the field of exercise science. You can make gains with 150 reps using a 3-pound dumbbell. However, do you need to lift a 100-pound dumbbell 100 times or a 50-pound dumbbell 100 times? No. You have a different, more complex, more challenging treatment target. So therefore, you do less reps. You get the gains. We're going to talk about later why you're going to get more gains when you go with a paragraph, when you go with 3-element clusters, than you would with a singleton that you do 100 times. We'll talk about that later. But the idea is that there's progressive overload. And that means you are challenging the child. You can challenge the child through high reps. You can challenge the child through more complex targets. But the idea is we're challenging the child. When we talk about challenge and ways you can challenge the child, instead of using singletons, I never even do singletons, single sounds, S, R, or F. Work on the clusters. The clusters are more complex. The clusters require a lot more speech motor coordination. It is what speech is. It's coordinated motor movements. That's how we talk. We don't say sounds in isolation. We say them in coordination with other sounds. And it's also going to challenge the motor coordination in that you're saying 2 sounds at the same time. So you're going from 0 to 100 and you're getting much more of a workout. The second way you can challenge the child is don't work at the word level, work at the phrase level, or work at the sentence level, or work at the paragraph level, or the complex sentence level. Another way you can challenge the child is saying the cluster, whatever the target is, while they're moving, while they're engaging in a complex linguistic task. So we're changing the activity, and the activity is going to be something where they're using their facilities, for instance, in the context of telling a story, or they're using the facilities in the context of a movement activity, or in some sort of activity where they're not just focused on their speech, they're using other facilities and they're still remembering to produce that R correctly. I'm going to use the R as an example in the R blend. Another way we can make it more complex or harder is we can change the blend on them. So for instance, early on, I like the SKR blend for the R sound, and that's because the S, you have your lips retracted, you have the lips retracted with a K as well, and then the R is all set. We have the skr. We're right in position in the lips. We also have that tongue pulled to the back of the mouth. So we are ready for the R, and it's also elevated as well for the Ka. So we have everything set up, but let's make it more challenging. Why don't we make it SPR? Oh, now the lips are rounded. Oh, and then you have to go from R, from 0, you have your lips rounded with the P, and you're going to have to pull them back and retract the tongue as well. Much more difficult. So you can see challenge creates change. We're using the principle of progressive overload. And that progressive overload means we're not going to create change unless we make it more challenging. And then we can talk about different people. For instance, I have a group with 2 amazing teachers, and it's one thing they say that with me, now you're going to go ahead and use this target with another teacher, and now you're going to use it with another teacher, and you're going to do it in a different activity, and you're going to do it in the context of this art activity, you're going to do it in the context of the storytelling activity, you're going to do it in the context of the movement activity. Do you see how we're creating challenge, and we're creating challenge in the sense clusters, 3 elements better than 2 elements? You can pick paragraphs, complex sentences. The more complex, the greater, because when a child's saying a paragraph, they are doing motor planning, motor programming, coordination. They have to map that out in a whole paragraph. This is endurance, right? They're not just doing hard things, they're doing hard things for a long time, and you're taxing the motor planning and the motor programming for a whole paragraph. Then you could also do it, as I mentioned before, in the context phonetically, the phonetic context. Is it going to be SPR, which is really hard, great for generalization, or an SKR, which is great to establish, where the neighboring sounds are actually helping the R, or the neighboring sounds making the hard R really hard. So you can look at that as well. Then you can look at the context. Are they being asked to do an activity while they say that R word? Are they asked to do something that's like telling a story while they're saying that R word, where it's taking a lot of cognitive, linguistic, attentional load, a lot of movement load, and they're doing other things while they're producing the R. And then lastly, they're doing it with different people. They're doing it with the teacher, they're doing it with the parents, they're doing it with you, different people, and they're producing the R. So there's many ways we can challenge the child, but you can't just get stuck in status quo. And it's easy to get stuck in status quo because change is hard. This is why I make my SIS activities so fun. And I'm like, the most important thing is they're fun. How fun is this activity? How can I make it more fun? Because if the children are having fun, their dopamine levels are going to go up, which means they're going to remember what they're going to be doing. It's going to be more meaningful. They're going to learn it more quickly, and they're going to have a break from the hard work. It's kind of like if you've ever been to a HIIT, high intensity training class. They make it super, super fun. They have all of these games involved. It's not like a jail where they're like, all right, here are the things you need to do. They're going to gamify it, right? So that you are going to actually come back after this really hard workout, because as hard as it is also as fun as it is. It's kind of like a fun boot camp, not one of those like jailhouse kind of boot camps. All right, let's look at number 3. This is really important, and people have asked me about this, auditory bombardment. And I've told people again in the past, auditory bombardment is not going to do it. It's just not going to do it. And you only have 30 to 45 minutes a week. That's it. There's just no time for auditory bombardment in this session. We have to cut the fat. And then they email back, and of course, people question my knowledge of research, and they say, well, what about the cycles approach? You can look it up where they've done the cycles approach with and without the auditory bombardment, keeping everything the same, and it's made No difference getting rid of the auditory bombardment. You can get rid of the auditory bombardment. Think of the auditory bombardment as kind of like if you're at Orange Theory and they're showing you how to do the exercises. They're going to go through, do this, do this, do this, right? And that is important for form. They're going to say, make sure to not have your back rounded and your chest open and go on your way. You watching them at Orange Theory doing the exercises is not creating neuromuscular change in your bodies. You need to do your own push-ups. You watching them do push-ups doesn't do it. And the same thing with our children. We cannot do their push-ups for them. They are not going to get better by watching us speak correctly. If that were the case, then we wouldn't have problems with the R and the S. The most common error that persists through adulthood is the rounded R and the frontally lisped S. Why? When they hear it millions of times modeled correctly for them morning, noon, and night, okay? But yet, they still produce it incorrectly. They're seeing people do the push-ups. They're seeing people do the push-ups of perfect form. That's not going to create the change. They need to do the push-ups themselves. Learning needs to be an active process. So if you're going to be leaner about how you spend your very, very valuable, very, very limited, too limited, many would say, therapy time, don't waste it on an auditory bombardment. If you're going to do it, a couple minutes, and we're on our way. I believe that when you're doing the modeling, you should do the modeling with the child going 0 miles an hour. Learning should always be an active process. You tell them, okay, let me get chip fingers out. Okay, we're going to make the hungry dog teeth sound. Go very, very slowly. Get them right in there. Okay, there we go. That's what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to go active, not passive when it comes to modeling. Of course, modeling does work when it comes to recasting and language. And that's a whole different episode, right? We're not talking about language here. We're talking about speech sound disorders. Even the limited research we have available that shows that recasting helps with speech sound disorders, we have to tease out how much of that is improved verbal working memory when you have recasting back at you, in which the sentences are longer in length and more complex grammatically, is improving the child's verbal working memory, which as a result could have an indirect impact on their speech. Because verbal working memory, what our research suggests, is a predictor of improved speech outcomes. Let's go to the next area. Number 4, compound training. Very important here. When we think about compound training, we want to think about what are we going to do that's going to work multiple muscular groups at one time. So you only have one session a week, 30 to 45 minutes. This is what the research indicates is the norm. Private therapy, this is what their insurance companies are going to cover. They're in the public schools. This is what the caseloads are dictating. What are we going to do? We're not going to work one muscular group. Let me give you an example. So I could wrist curls, right? I see the bodybuilders do this at the gym. Now, if I really need a total transformation in my body, would I go in a wrist curl is where they lie their forearm down on a platform, they take a weight and then they just roll that wrist up, right there. And it's like, this is a nice way to work my forearm. This isn't what you want to do when you have one session a week, 30 to 45 minutes. This is not efficient use of time. You want to use compound training and think, how can I work multiple muscular groups in a time-efficient manner? If I wanted to improve that wrist, and let's use the wrist as the R, right? We're gonna talk about it this way. If I had the person do plank work, burpees, sun salutations, that work every muscular group in the body and strengthening the wrist and the forearms, right? That would be better use of time. So I could work on the R, and I could work on the R in isolation, and I could work on the R at the word level, or I could take that R, put it in 3-element clusters to create system-wide linguistic change, and then throw it in a paragraph. And I can throw in that paragraph different variations of R. And that's like, if you look at my paragraphs, for instance, and if you could see me on YouTube, I'm going to say What's in a paragraph? Skrr. Okay, that's one R. Look at, if you see my mouth, it's way different than the next R. Sprr. It's way different than the next R. Maybe the next R is a jr. Maybe the next R is a frr. So I, like a spider web, because we have 32 variations of R, in that paragraph, I'm going to go ahead and do different clusters containing the R. So I have a paragraph. What does that do? It improves verbal working memory. This child is taking 4 sentences, putting them in order. Wow, it's improving attention. It's improving literacy next. Then, lastly, the amazing tier 2 vocabulary that's worth billions of dollars. It's doing everything all at once. It's creating linguistic system-wide change. Or I could get the deck of our cards out. The deck of our cards is the wrist curls. You decide. It's going to make a big difference whether you do compound training, which is what I was talking about the paragraph, with the 3-element clusters and the 2-element clusters, all coming from different angles, with the first, next, then, lastly, and it has the verbal working memory, has improved attention as well. It's all in there. Literacy, verbal working memory, attention, motor coordination, and even generalization of variations of different R's. We could do that, or we could work on the singleton R sound at the word level. So speech is a continuous motor movement. We don't speak in isolated sounds. We don't even speak at the single word level. We speak in a continuous manner. So if you were working with someone on your golf swing or on your tennis swing, and they had you stop every inch of the way while you're swinging that golf swing, this is a continuous motor movement, that doesn't look like golf. And neither does working on isolated speech sounds. That's not speech. What we do in therapy should be continuous speech. You do not want more than a 2 to 3 second pause between syllables or between sounds, because that's discrete movements. That's very different. Separate. That's not a golf swing, right? You want speech therapy to look like speech. The further away it is from speech, the less likely it's to generalize or make functional, generalizable gains in conversation. So we are actually going to speak to improve our speech. That's what we're going to do. If you are a swimmer, you are only going to improve your swimming by getting in the water and swimming. That specificity of the motor movement matters. So I've done half marathons where I did 100% biking, and then I went off and just ran a half marathon. I did biking because it's lower impact on the joints. But anyhow, there are these weird incidences where it does transfer, and biking to running is one weird incidence where it does transfer. Generally speaking, if you want to improve speech, you need to do speech. So for instance, I've worked with children who drool, and other speech pathologist says, I know what you do with drool. You do the oral motor exercises. That's the only way you can improve drool. And I said, au contraire, mon frère, I'm going to improve drool more quickly because this child's going to work on clusters. And when they work on clusters, they're going to get such a greater workout than blowing that cotton ball across the table. This is way harder. So us working on clusters is going to get the job done. And you're going to see a picture in the book. You're going to see mouth breathing, big cheeks, the whole 9 yards, with the child that's speaking with the jaw movement because of the motor weakness and the poor coordination and drool pouring out of their mouth. I work with them on clusters. Where's my starting point? SW blends. And you're going to see the drool disappear in no time. If you want to improve speech, very clearly do speech. Okay? Same thing as swimming. If you want to improve swimming, get in the pool and swim. This has been shown in the field of exercise science, and it's also been demonstrated in our very small research that we have available. Those are the 5 maxims that I wanted to share with you today. You can put this into practice right now. All of this is evidence-based that I shared with you today. The evidence is, of course, much stronger in the field of exercise science because they have a bigger library to draw from than we do. Our library is very, very small. So I encourage you to have wondering eyes when it comes to treating speech sound disorders. I encourage you to innovate. I encourage you to pay attention to your children and how they're making progress. At the preschool level, an easy way to monitor progress is to give the single word speech test every 2 months. The research indicates that is reliable to spontaneous conversation. That's how you're going to see your gains. It takes 10 minutes to give a spontaneous speech test. You're going to see generalizable gains. You're going to see gains on sounds that you have not even touched. Why? Because you're working on the hardest sounds in the language if you're working with me. And the complexity approach has a waterfall effect, which you talked about last time, in which you're getting earlier developing sounds for free. That's what you're going to find happening, and you're going to see it when you give the speech sound disorder assessment. Do the same assessment, and you give it every quarter, and you're going to see sounds spontaneously develop. Why? Because you are providing best practice strategies. Best practice strategies will give you best practice results. So what we're going to do now is do what you do best, which is to roll up your sleeves to make the world a better place, one child at a time. You will always be first.